This year's election stands out for a lot of reasons. Hostile campaigning, record early turnout, and some surprising results, to name a few. We will go over some high-profile races and examine the implications of those outcomes this morning. No race bigger, of course, than the President of the United States. As we record this on Friday, we don't have an official winner based on the Electoral College. For the record, follows the Associated Press and its allotment of 264 electoral votes for Joe Biden, 214 for Donald Trump, both short of the 270 needed to win the presidency. Now, Joe Biden would go over the top if he wins any one of the four of the 5 states not declared yet. Donald Trump's campaign is already filing legal challenges in some states. In Iowa, Senator Joni Ernst comfortably won a second term over Democratic challenger Theresa Greenfield. Polls varied widely for this race in recent weeks. Ernst secured almost 52% of the vote, far from a mandate. One race too close to call is the one to replace Democrat Dave Loebsack in Congress, who is leaving after this term. Democrat Rita Hart now has a 162-vote lead over Republican Marinette Miller-Meeks after counting some ballots received after Election Day. Miller-Meeks had the lead Tuesday night. Ballots received by Monday will be counted if they were postmarked before Election Day. Illinois' constitutional amendment to change the state's income tax system from a flat tax rate to a graduated rate failed overwhelmingly. It needed support from at least 60% to pass. It didn't even get a simple majority. It's certainly been quite a week. So many implications and challenges emerged from the election, the direction of the country, Iowa and Illinois being determined for the still very divided citizenry. We'll talk a lot about it this morning with former Iowa Republican Party Chair Steve Grubbs and Democratic political consultant Porter McNeil. Great to see you both, as always. Going to get right to it. In some ways, it seems like the election might never end. Donald Trump planted seeds months ago that the election would be rigged if he lost, but not if he won. Now those court fights loom that could decide the presidency. What kind of fallout should we expect if this comes down to the courts, perhaps overturning the will of the people? Steve?
Thank you, Jim. I think what you will see is that every vote will be counted, and if there are questions about whether something is fraudulent, it will be investigated, it will be challenged, and ultimately a fair decision will be made by our courts. I think what we will see is a fair process, and I think it'll be the best of democracy in the United States. I'm very optimistic that the best will come out for not just the parties, but for the country.
Porter, how do you respond?
You know, I have to agree with Steve. I think that every state's 50 state different election laws. The candidate has the right to challenge any issues that they have. I think because of the intensity and the focus on this election, that election authorities and all the states are going to be very thorough and accurate, and as Steve said, work toward a fair completion of the count. And that's the main thing, is to count all the ballots, and that's the truest democracy. And it's really something to celebrate that in the middle of COVID, we had over 150 million votes cast for president. So, I mean, I think on that level, if you pull back, that's pretty remarkable turnout for America with the challenges of COVID.
So completely agree.
We're talking on Thursday before the presidential race has been officially decided, but we all agree that it is trending towards Joe Biden at this point. I guess when I talk about my last question, we hear Donald Trump stoking the concern about a rigged election, and so if his followers follow that, you're not concerned of any sort of weird repercussions from that? I guess, Porter, you first this time?
Well, and I've been monitoring different networks and commentary, and the bottom line is you have to rely on election officials. They're going to need to see facts. It's not about Twitter, and it's not about inflammatory rhetoric on TV. I think as this process moves forward, these election officials are very serious about being thorough and accurate, and that will dispel a lot of the stoking and the conspiracy as they march forward. And then, as what I expect to be the pattern, if the pattern continues, Joe Biden will be over 300 electoral votes, and each of those challenges will be dealt with in hopefully a timely manner. The sooner the better, but they have to do it in a thorough and fair way. And I think that will then calm down some of the rhetoric and make people a little more common sense about this as time goes on.
Steve, your take? Hillary Clinton 4 years ago, it took her a couple of days, but she accepted the results.
Sure, right. Whether the president accepts them or not, it's really irrelevant. The bottom line, it's not about one man accepting it or not accepting it. It's about the Constitution, and the United States will move on with a peaceful transition. I mean, clearly there have been concerns that if the president were to somehow win this, that looting and rioting would go on in the cities. If Biden wins this, there's always the risk of some lone wolf crazy guy doing something terrible. We know these risks exist, and we saw it a lot in the 60s. But at the end of the day, we're a constitutional republic, and this will move forward. And whether the president accepts it or whether Joe Biden accepts it, doesn't matter. That we'll have a new administration come January.
In Congress, Democrats will still control the House of Representatives. It's trending that Republicans will hold on to the Senate, and that sets the stage for more stalemates. What do you both expect for issues like pandemic relief, health care, immigration, and certainly all the other things that we talk about? Steve?
Well, if you're a student of history, my father was a history teacher, so he always taught me to be. Many of the greatest times of economic growth, peace, and prosperity have come when we've had the presidency in one party's hands and the Congress in another. So the markets like the fact that the Republicans may control the Senate. If Biden ends up becoming the president, it'll be split. And I think that if that occurs, you will not see the Trump tax cuts repealed. You'll see them stay in place. I think that's good for the economy. And I do think that a President Biden would work with both sides of the aisle. So I think split government is not a bad thing.
Porter, do you share that point of view?
Well, first of all, I appreciate the confidence that Steve seems to have that it would be President Biden. So thank you, Steve. I agree with him that when you have divided government, go back to the days of Obama and the Senate Republicans, or way back to Bill Clinton and the House Republicans. You had divided government that resulted in strong economic performance. Looking ahead, for the next few months, President Trump's in office. I don't know how to call that in terms of will they work out a deal on COVID, but President Biden, under a President Biden who worked with the Senate, comes from the Senate, when he worked for President Obama, was really tasked with outreach to Capitol Hill on major initiatives. I think his nature is probably to be someone who will work with Republicans and try to have kind of a pragmatic approach to getting things done with the Senate Republicans if they remain in control. So I agree with Steve. I think there's a pattern that could be positive.
We've got more ground to cover about the election. Right now, our question of the week: what do you think about the legal challenges to the election by the Trump campaign and the attempt to stop votes from being counted? Send your answer by email to fortherecord@whbf.com or respond to this post on Facebook at the Local 4 News WHBF TV page or on my page.